Hey everybody, my name is Eric Hopkins and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're finding me for the very first time, please click that like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content here on my channel. So I finally got around to watching the first episode of Disney Plus's and Marvel Studios Loki, starring Tom Hiddleston. So I want to do a quick little review about that episode. And don't worry, if you've not seen the episode, I won't ruin it for you here at first until I get into my spoiler section here, so you can watch this without being ruined on the show if you've not checked it out yet. So just my first general thoughts of the show. I absolutely love this episode. This episode was really well done, and I know we've been talking here on the channel a little bit about how Marvel Studios is going to be getting into the multiverse. And if this is how they approach the multiverse with this kind of it's got a bit of a dark tone to it, but it has its comedic elements as well. But if they continue to, approach it with this little bit, it's almost like a horror, which I know, like a horror element, which we know that Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness coming up next March is going to have a horror element to it. So if they continue to approach it like this, going into verses and alternate timelines could be a scary thing. This could be very good, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. So in that regard, I really liked how this episode dived into that. But again, it also had a lot of comedic elements to it as well. All the way through, I was laughing pretty heavily throughout this entire episode. Of course, this episode picks up right after Avengers Endgame with the scene of Loki picking up the Tesseract in that movie from the 2012 timeline. And of course, we all know that this Loki is not the current Loki that was killed by Thanos at the beginning of Avengers Endgame. This Loki is the 2012 version that's ripped right out of the timeline after the Avengers beat him in the first Avengers film. So this is a different Loki, but he's still got some of that emotional family baggage that he's carrying with him that we've seen throughout the course of the series. And there's a great scene in the middle of the episode where he has to confront that trauma, which I won't get into my spoiler section here. But it's a very well acted scene by Tom Hiddleston. And speaking of well acted scenes, Owen Wilson is great at this. The chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson is absolutely top-notch. From the moment that they meet, they have most of the episode they're together and they're talking about certain things, and when they're sitting at this table they're really conversing back and forth, and they've got just this great chemistry to it. And I think if we're going to get more of that throughout the series, I think they're in for a winner here, and this episode is definitely a winner from the get-go. Obviously that we also get introduced to the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, in this episode. This episode is definitely heavy on exposition, setting up the rest of this series, and I think we need that because we kind of need to know what world we're living in at the moment here with this series. So I think they've done a good job of setting it up going forward, and I believe they've got 6 episodes total. So we should have most of the storytelling already laid out for us. That way, when we get to the other episodes, we don't have to dive into that so much. We can just dive right into the story and pick it up from there, and we already kind of have an idea of what's going on. So in that regard, I thought they did a great job of setting things up. So overall, I really like this episode. Like I said, I hope that we'll get into more of where they're going in the next couple episodes. Obviously, clearly, they're going to do that, but especially with the reveal at the end of this episode, which I'll get into in my spoiler section here, I can't wait to see where they take that. So with that being said, definitely go check it out. I want to get into a little bit of spoilers here, so I want to hit the spoiler warning. So if you've not seen the episode, I recommend you check out now and then come back and watch the rest of my review after you've seen it. Okay, so the one thing I thought was really cool about this, obviously when they introduced us to the Time Variance Authority, we get a little bit of a background into what the timeline history is of the MCU. And one of the things that Miss Minutes, which is the animated clock character that we've seen in the posters and in the trailers and things like that, she's basically the one who tells us all the history here. And she's basically Mr. DNA from the Jurassic Park movie. And she tells us the history of the Time Variance Authority and how it started. And she alludes to the fact that there was once a multiversal war where all these different timelines were splintered off, and they all had a war with each other. And then she even mentions if timelines begin to splinter off like Loki has done in this series, if it's not contained, it could lead to another multiversal war. Is this potentially where the MCU is going in possibly Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness? Because if all these timelines are split off and it's not under control, what could that lead to? Possibly a character like Doctor Strange is the only one who could possibly correct that. And obviously the Timekeepers wouldn't be happy about that sort of thing that the Time Variance Authority was created by. And obviously that's also another possible, preview, or, they allude to the fact that one of the next big bads could be Kang the Conqueror, which we know will be in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania at the beginning of 2023. So are they already laying the seeds for all of that? Most likely, the MCU is definitely laying seeds for where they're going with the multiverse and Kang the Conqueror and all that good stuff already, because that's what they do. They plan things way ahead of time, and they know exactly where they're going. They've got their end point, and now they're going to fill in the gaps from beginning to that end, and that is great storytelling, and this is why the MCU is so successful. If many other movies were to do that, and TV shows were to do that, they would have a much better success rate, I promise you. Also, the one thing I really, really loved about this episode, like I said, was the chemistry between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston, but Loki's trauma here. We get a history of Loki. Obviously, Owen Wilson is taking Loki himself throughout his life. He's showing him history that has already occurred, and history that this particular Loki in 2012 has not lived yet. And when he gets to that point where he sees that he's the one responsible for his mother's death in Thor: The Dark World, it breaks Loki. And then, of course, he sees his own death at the hands of Thanos. And again, he starts to question, what is my life all about? And then he even has a great scene where he admits to Owen Wilson that he does not enjoy hurting people, but he does it to kind of, cover up the weakness that he has. He has to project strength. And it's a great scene to where it just gives you an inside look of Loki himself. And, of course, the realization that the Loki character does know that he has that weakness, and he's just trying to cover it up. So it's a great scene that Tom Hiddleston acts very well, and especially the scene he breaks down when he sees the image of his mother's death, which I don't even think that the Thor: The Dark World even really explained the fact that he was the one who said, you might want to go to the left, tell the Dark Elves where to go, but he thought he was leading them to Thor. I don't think that I don't think that movie or the rest of the series ever actually explained that he inadvertently led them to his mother. If they did, I didn't catch it in like Thor: The Dark World or anything like that. But this one here lays it out, in perfect explanation of that he definitely led to his mother's death, and that adds a whole other element to the fact that Loki lost his mother and then it broke him in that film. So now that you know that he actually led them to her death, that's a heartbreaking scene in itself. So I love the fact that they went through all of that, and of course they showed him his future that must happen according to the Time Variance Authority. Once something is set is going to happen in the universe, it's going to happen, and that's why the Timekeepers stay out of it. But if something diverts that's not supposed to happen, they correct it. So it's again, you could argue about where were they when Thanos attacked, or where were they when Captain America took the stones back, or time was already messed with. I'm sure they're going to address that at some point, especially if Kang the Conqueror comes in to kind of confront the Avengers. I think that very well could happen. But as of right now, they're using this story element to say why they're focusing on Loki right now and not on the other stuff. So we'll see if they ever address some of that other stuff moving forward. But we'll just have to see what they do. Also, one of the things that I want to finish up this review with here that I thought was really intriguing about this episode, it's revealed at the end that the villain of this series is also an alternate timeline version of Loki himself. So how is that going to play into all this stuff, especially when you're talking about multiple timelines and multiverses? I'm intrigued by this, and I can't wait to see how they take the Loki that we're following through the series, who's probably obviously going to be the anti-hero hero of this series, and he's going to have to confront his darker self. That could be a great story element that I'm absolutely looking forward to. And I also obviously want to see the dark Loki too, Loki at his highest potential as a villain. That could be interesting to see too, as well as the juxtaposition between the evil version of Loki and the good side of Loki, which he's constantly struggled with throughout the entire series. So to see two characters actually go face to face, I think that could be great. So I can't wait to see where they take this. But the real question here is, guys, what do you guys think about Loki Season 1, Episode 1? Please comment down below. Let me know. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get all the notifications about when I put up new content here on this channel. And until my next video, guys, take care.